Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transit known as a Mercury retrograde. This hot mess Mercury retrograde. This hot mess Mercury retrograde is the exact reason why I said December is a hot mess, because all of December is the Mercury retrograde. However, it's very odd energy that we're going into because the themes of this Mercury retrograde will be different than any of the other ones that we've had this year. In all of the time span up until this one, Mercury has been going through retrogrades in nothing but earth signs. So the way that we started this year, that Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, it was all in Capricorn. The eclipse season Mercury retrograde that we had in April and May was all in Taurus. Put a pin in that. We will come back to this retrograde. That third Mercury retrograde was all in Virgo. Virgo, Virgo, Virgo. But this one is different. And when I've meditated on this one, there's a clear indication to me that this Mercury retrograde has two themes. One theme at the start, and the one theme that we have at the start is being very much met with resistance to something, and I have reasons why I'm saying that, and I will explain them. We will have the Mercury Cazimi that occurs at the start of Capricorn season, and then after this Mercury Cazimi, a whole different energy takes place. There's a mixed bag of energy. One half is not going to match the other half. One situation is going to reach a culmination point mid-retrograde that is, for some people, going to lead to a full revision, a rethinking, a revising, or it's going to shift our gears completely because we're going to be done with something in our moment of clarity. And then the next day, it's going to be on to a whole different bowl of cereal. I'm just going to say it that way. It's a lot. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of things that we're moving into. Now, for those that have never listened to whenever I talk about the Mercury retrogrades before, I don't just look at the Mercury retrograde itself. I actually look at what's going on in the pre-shadow stage and in the post-shadow stage. And what everybody needs to know about this Mercury retrograde is this entire timeline is preparing us for when Pluto goes into Aquarius. It is. And the way everything lines out speaks to that energy. And whenever I start displaying the chart, and I actually take us like all the way from November into January, that will make sense once we get into January. But the elements of this Mercury retrograde is forcing us to reorganize, replan, restructure, reevaluate certain levels of hierarchy, certain responsibilities. For some people, those responsibilities are all about work. For other people, those responsibilities are our connections and our commitments to another person. For some people, the responsibilities that I am referring to is that new role in the family that has recently been unveiled. That unveiling was something that happened in November, right before Mercury went into shadow. For those here in America, we had a holiday. We had Thanksgiving. And when people got to Thanksgiving, there was this energy of seeing the condition of an elder, seeing who's responsible now, seeing how something has changed, seeing a new role. But not everybody was involved with that. Not the entire family, not the entire office, not the entire picture was there. But elements were. And those elements led into something that was being unveiled, spoken about, uncovered the week before Mercury turns retrograde. The week of Mercury turning retrograde, we have something that's trying to start, that's trying to begin. We have a turnaround that is trying to initiate, and the turnaround is going to be met with resistance. And that speaks to the way the transits are going. A new moon in Sagittarius would usually be something fun and happy and boastful. This one will not be. It will be for some, but not for everybody. In a lot of ways, there's going to be a resistance. We're trying to start something that not everybody's in agreement with. We're trying to unveil something. We're trying to unveil something. Sorry, I got to coughing, guys. We're trying to unveil something that not everybody's in ball with, not everybody's on board with, not everybody's in the same league with, not everybody wants to be a part of. There is resistance. In some ways, it's like saying, I want you back in my life, but I don't really want your husband around. I don't really want that person around. I don't really want mom and dad to know. I don't, like, we can talk a little bit, but I don't really want the whole big thing. Some of us, it's going to be going on at work. We're going to start this new division. We're going to start this new way of doing things. We're going to implement this new procedure, and it's going to be great. And everybody's like, no, it's not. It might be a great theory. It might be great in your head. It might be great in some way, but it's not going to be great from the beginning. It's going to be a headache. It's going to be a nightmare. And because you just think it's a great idea and you're going to push it off on us, because that's what most bosses do. It's what they do. I have this great idea. I'm so glad. Can I live in your head for a while and you come live in mine so you can see that this is not as great of an idea as you think it is? No, you don't want to play that game? Damn, I could use your paycheck. Anyways. There is something in this energy that we're trying to start, that we're trying to initiate, that we're trying to heal, that's not going to happen immediately. It's going to take time. It's going to require a rethinking. It's going to require trying to develop a new habit, a new way of doing things. And for some people, that's not an easy thing to do. If you've been single for a long time and all of a sudden you're trying to bridge a gap and like, look, I want us to be together, but you got to remember, like, I ain't been in a relationship in 7 years. I don't know how to be in a relationship anymore. Some of you have been in a relationship for umpteen years. I'm just going to make up a number there. Umpteen years. And then you went and got divorced. And now you're suddenly dating again for the first time. And you have to have this conversation. I'm like, I don't know how to date. I don't know what this is anymore. I don't know the protocol. I don't know all the lingo. I don't know. And that can happen to people at any age. You got married and whenever you were 18 and now you're in your early 30s and you're just now learning how to date again because you've been in a long-term situation. And some part of it's going to feel weird. I don't want to be overbearing, but I also don't want to control everything. Like, there's this weird, funky energy at the start of the Mercury retrograde. And the level of weird, the level of funk is going to be different for everybody. The one thing I will say that many of us will deal with whenever Mercury turns retrograde in Capricorn is that people that are not holding up their end of the bargain, that are not acting responsibly, that are not doing correct things in positions of authority. Oh, we're going to have words. We're going to have words. When Mercury goes into Sagittarius, this part is just its own little themes, not necessarily specific to any part of the transit. When Mercury goes into Sagittarius, where we have differences in our beliefs, that's going to be a bigger thing. Our beliefs, our hopes, our philosophy, our religions. And that's going to be more around the holiday time span. So that's going to be super fun. Some of the family members that I've been estranged from, the last time that I was talking to them, I was still in home building. I was still not doing any level of astrology or using my intuition publicly at all whatsoever. And now I do this. I'm so excited for the holidays. I'm secure in what I do, so I don't really care what people think. But I know it's going to be a topic. It's going to come up. Some of you are in similar situations. You're going to get to the holidays and something you've changed in your life. Maybe you are in that new relationship and you got the new boyfriend, you got the new girlfriend, or even more fun, you're in a polyamorous relationship and nobody knows. Oh, the holidays are going to be fun because there's going to be an element of it that comes through that is a bit blindsiding. It is a bit blindsiding. Okay. So, I want to talk about one particular element that's going to happen at the start of the Mercury retrograde before I go into the charts. I've said this part in the month ahead forecast, but I said then I'm not going to do a heavy detail on it here because Mercury is going to get its own video. Hi, here's the Mercury video. This will also get referenced in the new moon in Sagittarius video, but I'm not going to go heavy on that because I'm doing it here. So I will make a reference in that video going, if you don't understand what an Antiscia is, go watch this other video and look for the Antiscia chapter. Hi, we are now in the Antiscia chapter. Unless you're on Spotify and then you have to go to the time stamps in the description to understand it. So I've already got my little piece of paper here. I want to show you my little, looks like a little devil. We're not making fun of the way I make circles or lines or anything like that. We're looking at one concept. At the start of the Mercury retrograde, we're going to have the sun in Sagittarius, and we have Mercury here. And usually, these two being in different signs is not going to be that big of a deal. However, there are certain lines in the sky that if we were to fold the charts at those lines, we create what's known as secret transits. And there's two secret transits that I'm referring to. One is an Antiscia. The other one is a Contra-Antiscia. We're more focused on Antiscia, but a quick little explanation of both. An Antiscia is a secret opposition. It is an opposition in an area of life where we would normally not have opposition, that we would normally not have an issue, that we would normally not give a shit. Easy enough. Contra-Antiscia. It is a secret alliance. It is the backroom handshake. It is the people that are on the same page with one another without ever having to say, oh yeah, we respect each other. We trust each other. We understand each other. We have a mutual understanding. We're not going to be focused on Contra-Antiscia because it doesn't really apply, but we are going to be focused on an Antiscia because of the way this Mercury retrograde starts and will continue almost all the way through the entire retrograde. Now, back to my little piece of paper. If I was to fold the chart where Mercury and the sun are, they lay on top of one another. They're suddenly now in an opposition that would not normally be seen. Mercury is turning retrograde in Capricorn. The host of Capricorn, Saturn, is direct. The sun, always direct. It's the sun. Everything revolves around me. This is the sun. The sun is in Sagittarius, and the sun has recently had something that has changed its mind, changed the ego. This happened within the last 2 weeks, going into the retrograde. I was very, very specific about that. The sun in Sagittarius has had something change its mind, and we're going into an energy where we're trying to get something changed, but is being met with resistance in more than one way. But the sun moving direct towards Mercury, this entire timeline of the retrograde, these two are going to go and this happens at the 0 degrees of Capricorn. We're really looking forward to this energy. That Mercury Cazimi has so many layers to it. It is truly unfathomable. And for a single moment, logic and ego will meet. And it happens on that date. But then what happens? Flip. And they start going away from one another. The sun is in Sagittarius. The host, Jupiter, is stationing and spinning and stuck. People that are going to be going through sun activations during this Mercury retrograde is going to be like, it's all going to be great. It's all going to be okay. It's going to be great. You just got to trust me. I don't want to trust your ass because I don't think you thought things through, Mercury. Mercury is in Saturn's sign. We want to be responsible. We want to act accordingly. We want things to go well. We don't want to get in trouble. We don't want to deal with a hot mess. This feels like a hot mess. And if it's going to be a hot mess, is it going to be a hot mess just because I'm going to have to fix it all later? Or is it a hot mess because you're doing something shady? How dare you? Sometimes the boss is doing something shady. Sometimes your coworkers are doing something shady. Somebody in your family is doing something shady. In some element, for some people, the sun can be doing something shady. And what's going to happen is these two are in an opposition to one another. It's not a direct opposition. It is the Antiscia. It is the secret opposition. And for every step forward, we have a level of resistance. For every hopeful idea and act of doing something a certain way, Mercury's coming back around going, and you didn't do it right. You didn't file your paperwork, Wazowski. This is the greatest analogy. I don't know why I just thought of that. Monsters Inc. Come on, Roz. Come on, we can do it. It can all be great. You didn't file your paperwork. You didn't do this appropriately. We're not in the right order. We don't have the right things involved. We didn't follow the right procedure. No. Until we get to that Mercury Cazimi. The day of the Mercury Cazimi, we will have the least amount of planets in Jupiter's sign. We will only have Mars, Neptune, and Saturn. That Mercury Cazimi is the way we start Capricorn season. And then the dynamic changes. Mercury goes into Sagittarius. Now, Mercury going backwards, that's our logical brain. We have a logical way of wanting to do something, but now we have Mercury back in its detriment. So Mercury is retrograde and in its detriment. Now I'm going to remind everybody what happened that last week of November. We had a Mercury-Neptune square during the full moon in Gemini. And we're going to go back to the Mercury-Neptune square right after Mercury goes into Sagittarius. Oh, and on this same time span, when Mercury's back in the square with Neptune, we're going to have a conjunction to Mars. When we have the conjunction to Mars in the square to Neptune, while Mercury is in its detriment and retrograde, we're going to have a full moon in Cancer. That's a whole hand. That is a lot of confusion. That is a lot of emotions. That is a lot of things not making sense. That is a lot of people beating their head against a brick wall. That is a lot of people that does not want to hear how other people think, how other people believe, the way other people want to do things. There will be a very hot mess energy. And it is most hyperized between December 26th and 27th. Jupiter will be spinning. Mercury is gonna be in a mess. But Jupiter's spinning and spiraling and feeling stuck and feeling like nothing's turning around and nothing's going a certain way. It's going to lead to a additional layer to the spiraling, confused, not thinking clearly energy of Mercury. I don't like December 26th and 27th. I don't. I don't like it for travel. I don't like it for people that have done a lot of online shopping either. I thought it was really interesting. All these little threads on TikTok, like nobody's doing Black Friday shopping. All these stores are empty. Nobody's here. Nobody's here. It's 7:30 in the morning and nobody's here. That's because we had a new record high of online purchases that occurred during Black Friday. It was over $9 billion per Bloomberg. What also occurred during that time was there was a 72% increase of people that decided to do buy now, pay later apps. This time span could be whenever somebody gets their first credit card statement and we see how much got spent and nobody's happy. And I said this on a prior episode, but I'm saying it again now. If you are in a relationship, most of the time, one person does all the shopping and the other person finds out later. This is going to be a find out later. One person has been doing one thing and other people are suddenly going to be becoming very aware of it. Something is going to get unveiled and it is going to lead to some level of immediate action, because with the Mercury Mars conjunction immediately following that, Mars is going to hit a square to Neptune. And we're going to need to take something to the next level. We're going to need to find a creative solution. We're going to need to get something worked through. And I honestly don't feel that we're going to get a full understanding of the hot mess energies solution until Venus goes into Sagittarius and starts mutual reception. The way I see Venus going into Sagittarius this go round, Venus cleans house. Venus sets it all straight. She's been on her own for a while. When she goes into Sagittarius, she's going to go into signs again where she's coexistent with other planets. It's like somebody coming back into the room, somebody coming back into the fold, somebody coming back into the family going, oh, hell no. We're not doing things this way. I'm not putting up with this. Nobody needs to do this. And it'll be very much Venus's energy that overcomes that opposition, overcomes the questions of beliefs, overcomes the situation. Is it really going to make two shits of a difference if your sister has a boyfriend and a girlfriend? Does it really affect your personal life? No. Then why are you acting this way? Exactly. Anytime you have a retrograde, it is about revising, reviewing, recanting, reanalyzing, reevaluating, replenishing. We have to redo things. In many ways, if you're not prepared for elements of this Mercury retrograde, we're going to fall into reactions. I tried to say that sooner than I wanted to. But really, this Mercury retrograde, with the way that it ends and having it end so consecutively with Jupiter, it does feel like a realignment and a rebooting for many people. There is a resistance to turning something around. There is a resistance to levels of hope. There's a resistance to what we're trying to work through, the bridges that we're trying to cross. Not everybody is ready to cross. Some people don't like change, and I like to make fun of you for it. You know who you are. You know when you're being stubborn. I just have no problem with calling you out on it. Okay. So we're going to get into the charts. I'm going to start us in November. I'm starting us in November because that's when Mercury went into shadow. I've been saying this on the podcast already. Pay attention to what's going on in these dates. Pay attention. Pay attention to the themes. Pay attention to the topics. Pay attention to the situations. Because we're going to come back to it in some way. So, be aware of that, because I'm actually starting us in November. I'm going to take us all through the December, and then we're going to go into parts of January. And again, the things that are pushing for alignment, when it comes to this Mercury retrograde, it is a direct impact to the awareness, the unveiling, and the new dynamics of power that is meant to be understood when Pluto re-enters Aquarius. And that's going to make sense at the end of the chart when we get into January. So you're going to have to pay attention until then. So let's take a look at the screen. We're going to get into November 25th. Here we go. So we're just going to move this by day. I'm not going to move this by hour. I'm not going to do the stuff that I would normally do on the weekly podcast, because that's what the weekly is for. This is to give you dates. And if you've had something going on during the dates before, then this is letting you know when we're going to come back to them later, when the next layer comes around, when certain things are going to hit. So first things first. November 25th in the morning time, Mercury hit 22 degrees. This is Mercury's point of shadow. When we get to the end of December, this is where Mercury is going to be. We were moving into a full moon when Mercury entered shadow. At this exact moment, there wasn't a whole lot going on per se. Mars was in its square to Saturn, so we had some element of pushing for responsibility, pushing for somebody to do something, take an action, to work through something. But whatever this working through energy is, it wasn't directly being understood in Mercury's energy, but it is there. So there's Mercury. 2 days later, we get to the full moon in Gemini. Now, again, this perfected in the overnight hours from November 26th going into the 27th. This full moon in Gemini still included a square with Mars. It wasn't an exact square. Mars was still in its square, not exact, but there was something that illuminated in that full moon in Gemini that's leading to new steps and taking something forward and getting something going. I say that because as soon as we got through the full moon in Gemini, Saturn started to move. Now, some of the steps that were being made were not entirely clear. And that's because we also had Mercury in its square with Neptune. We had a logical decision that was being met with confusion. We were trying to have very logical conversations, telling somebody that we were going to make a change, that other people were like, I don't know what you're trying to say to me. And there were large elements of confusion this entire week until Mercury changed signs, was being met with indifference and confusion. People were not seeing eye to eye. This was why. This was one of the big reasons why. Mercury square to Neptune. Mars is square to Saturn. We were being met with resistance. We were meeting people and not necessarily understanding them, or not getting the full effect, not understanding the full feeling, not being able to live fully in the moment. There were things that were obstructing our view. And there was frustrations. People got caught doing some shady shit. People got caught in their lies. People got with their pants down in some ways when Mercury hit the square to Neptune. The thing about this Neptune square compared to all the others, the difference here was Neptune was still retrograde. But in the week after, Neptune turned direct. So there was something here that in that moment of being met with resistance, still allowed for something to fall away, an energetic barrier of some sort to fall away. And we're going to be in the process of trying to overcome whatever that barrier has been in parts of the Mercury retrograde, but again, it's trying to overcome something, and we're still being met with resistance. There's going to be so much resistance that kicks in after the new moon in Sagittarius. Okay. December 1st, Mercury goes into Capricorn. So here we are, 0 degrees. And again, December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, arguably the 4th, These days had a very serious tone in the conversation. We were making plans. We were trying to put together a strategy. We were trying to put something in motion. And we knew in some ways the energy that we were doing was not going to be well received by everybody, that we anticipated resistance. And that's why I said strategy. Some people did not overcome the resistance. And once Mercury turns retrograde, that resistance is going to kick up a notch because the other person did not do the work. They were just all Jupiterian, the sun and Sag, like, yeah, everything's going to be great, just super hopeful, not realizing that the other people were being super critical. But there were topics that started to come through December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, arguably the 4th. I'm mainly sticking to December 1st through 3rd, that required strategy, required an element of responsibility, required an element of understanding rules and boundaries, and in some ways trying to implement them. But again, some element of this was not well thought out, was not well prepared. December 7th. 7th? Yes. It's not 7th? What did I wrote down the 7th. December 3rd. No, it is the 7th. I have started looking at Mars. Dusty does dumb things without anybody's help. Trust and believe that. Okay. December 7th. Mercury entered its trine with Jupiter. Now, for some people, we had this hope in this energy, a hopefulness, a luck element that we were trying to fathom. The thing is, this is the first trine, and Mercury's slowing down, and Jupiter's slowing down. So I don't feel like the luck in this moment was going to be an easy luck. It's more about patience. Mercury in this trine to Jupiter had a blessed feeling. And that blessed feeling for some people really came through over the weekend following the trine because Venus became involved. And Venus hit her opposition to Jupiter. But again, Jupiter slowing down to enter retrograde. We had hopeful connections, healing levels of connections that in some way, shape, or form, we were still meeting with resistance. We want this. We want to get better. We want to do better. We want to thrive. We want to overcome. We want to heal. But we can't do it all overnight. And we need a baby step through the energy. Extending the olive branch through these few days, December 7th, 8th, and 9th, extending the olive branch was a necessary move, was a necessary act. The first connections here will lead to more things throughout the rest of the month while we're in the process of turning things around, but they're not going to be easily recognized in this moment. They're not meant to be because not everybody's ready yet. Some people are going to be turds. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep moving this along. We're going to get to the 11th. Now, the 11th is interesting to me because Venus is going to hit the exact trine with Mercury for the second time. Now, the last one that occurred was November 15th. And those two had a sextile at 8 degrees of Libra and Sagittarius, but they were in conjunct Jupiter. They had no aid from Jupiter. It was blind trust that Jupiter will fall into line. Jupiter will be in page. Jupiter will do something with us later. But Jupiter wasn't ready. Even in this moment, Jupiter's still not ready, but the awareness for Jupiter is there. And considering we're going into a new moon in Jupiter sign, the awareness is there. It's just going to take slow steps before anything happens. Mercury and Venus entering this second sextile right as Mercury is starting to station to turn retrograde, tells me that we have some type of conversation that, again, makes us rethink something. In some ways, it goes back to the olive branch situation of trying to reconnect, of trying to bridge over troubled waters, of trying to do something a certain way, but knowing only so much will get done, only so much is going to be accepted, because in some way, shape, or form, we are resistant to some level of change. We're not resistant to all of it. Look, I'll talk to you, but I'm not going to talk to our brother. You can come over, we can go have coffee, we can hang out, but I don't want to see your husband. Like, I don't like him. I don't want to deal with that drama. I'm not ready for that drama. And that's okay for somebody to say, I'm not ready. Baby steps. Baby step the energy. Elements of something can be accepted, but other parts will be resisted. Baby steps. Excuse me. Okay. The next day, December 12th, new moon in Sagittarius. This new moon in Sagittarius, again, starts the Antiscia. It is right after the new moon perfects, actually once the moon hits its square to Neptune, that it's like we have somebody announce something, we have somebody tell us something great that they're really excited about, but the initial energy is not met with excitement. It is met with resistance. It is met with confusion. It is met with some element of off-putted, not able to focus. Why would you even do that? Why do you think that's a good idea? Level of energy. We are hopeful to turn something around, but other people are not as hopeful as we are. We're hopeful to launch this new part of the business, but other people are not as excited because you're hopeful to launch it, but you're not actually doing the launching. You're going to delegate it to somebody else that already has too much on their plate. Like all bosses do. Okay. December 13th, Mercury turns retrograde. And actually, they're not too far off from their Antiscia at this moment. So again, if I was to fold the chart, Mercury and the Sun would be laying on top of each other. Two planets that should usually be really on the same page with one another are suddenly not on the same page. They're not seeing eye to eye. One person is trying to take a serious, responsible energy, and they're having to go back over work that they've already done, go back over situations that they've already done, and the other side is going to be like, it's going to be so great, it's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful, and we're going to be going back over things. I don't know about you guys. This is me speaking personally. I don't like going over things all over again. I really don't. Especially if I did it the first time. If I did all the work the first time, and now I have to go back over and do the exact same work all over again, that is infuriating. That is frustrating. This new moon coincided with a Mercury retrograde starting. This new moon with this Mercury retrograde, it initiates frustration. It's going to initiate resistance. It's going to initiate a certain energy that will not be easily understood. It will not be as clear. We're going to do what we have to do because we're going to do the responsible thing. But we also know what we're doing is going to be an issue later. It's going to lead to something later. It's going to lead to another action later. Or it's going to lead to the dissolution in some way. Now, anyone that you have going through sun activations at this time, it's not going to be fun because this is also the same week that the sun is going to hit its square to Neptune. Happy and boastful, and we're going to have all these great things and very dreamlike energy, and people are not focused. People are going to be confused. And again, people that are not acting responsibly are going to be met with resistance. It's very profound here. This Sun-Neptune square, for some people, it's going to be like, woo, it's going to be so great. And other people are going to be like, I want to strangle you. Get away from me. Get away from me. Now, Mercury will enter its second trine with Jupiter on December 18th. So we have Mercury here, 5 degrees, 44 minutes. Here's Jupiter, 5 degrees, 50 minutes. And this is really interesting to me, considering the moon is in Jupiter's sign. And we're in the process during this trine of going into a quarter moon, which is going to be in a conjunction to Neptune. So I'm going to bump this one more day to the 19th. Mercury's just past its trine, but you can see the quarter moon energy that I'm talking about. These conversations of what we're going back over, of, again, trying to bridge a situation, trying to extend an olive branch. Some people might not actually see that olive branch completely turn until around this timeline, because we need a time to think it over. We've been seeing the resistance of another person, and this is going to be one of those moments where I've thought about what you said, and we can try this. I thought about what you said, and I'm not in for it. I don't want to do it this way. I don't want to do business this way. I don't want to meet with you. I don't want to meet with the other person. There's something here about turning something around, but also going back over something from the past. So some people might have more questions about a past situation that, again, is an emotional situation, an emotional conversation, an emotional level to healing. This is the first quarter moon in a water sign that's going to perfect into a full moon in Cancer in a water sign later on. So again, we could be having conversations that are meant to offer stability, that are meant to help us find hope and find clarity, but we're not completely clear in the moment. If we're having elements of support come through, more than likely it's people who are supporting us from the past. This is not new person energy. This is not new situation energy. Okay. Oop. Bump this forward. Now, when Mercury re-enters its sextile to Saturn, this is a really interesting date to me, because there's so much that's going on the 21st that it's just unreal. This is going to be a very busy day for people. One, we're going to have the Mercury, Venus Uranus opposition. I said it's Mercury retrograde video. Okay. We have this Venus Uranus opposition. Venus is in Pluto's sign. It's in Mars's sign. Hear me out. And Venus is hitting this opposition to Uranus. Now, in the earlier parts of the hours, the moon is going to hit a trine with Mars. So this actually, I'll go ahead and move it by hour this time just to make this a little bit more clear. I'm very interested on this date. So this is 3 a.m. December 21st. So for some people, this is going to be something that perfects on the 20th. For other people, it's going to be something that perfects on the 21st. Venus will hit her exact opposition to Uranus. Mars is going to trine the moon in Mars' sign. There's a lot of excitement here. There's a lot of unexpected, exciting energy. And then at the same time, Mercury is going to re-enter its sextile with Saturn. We had a strategy the first few days of December. We've extended an olive branch through the timeline following. We've made an offer. We've extended an olive branch. We've had some type of situation that is now culminating into a very exciting, unexpected, whirlwind level of energy. Now, for some people, if we're trying to bridge the gap between ourselves and another person, so ourselves in a relationship, ourselves with our family members, ourselves and another person in some way, This is when we get the call of acceptance. And again, that's going to lead to a whirlwind of excitement. But Venus's opposition to Uranus leads to something very, very unexpected. Mars in the trine to the moon in Mars's sign is going to speak to a change that is starting, a shift in momentum to take an action. There's a big shift in momentum here. Mercury in that sextile to Saturn is about having a conversation, taking responsibility, taking a responsible decision and voicing it, a past opportunity that now we're going to voice. In some ways, it's also seeing like a plan of action coming into shape, coming into form. The strategy worked. And then we get to the next day, and we get the Mercury Cazimi. And that again perfects on the 22nd. This is how we start Capricorn season. Now I'm going to be super clear. I'm so looking forward to this Mercury Cazimi. I think that there's going to be a profound amount of clarity that comes through this day. And there is some level of stability when you have this Mercury Cazimi, and we also have the moon in this conjunction to Jupiter. There is something very profound to healing, stabilizing, clarity, establishing rules, establishing boundaries, but Jupiter being retrograde still, we're establishing new rules with a past situation, with a past person. We're talking about the way something was done in the past, with Mercury still being retrograde, and offering a plan now with how that's going to be different. Some of us, we are trying to get somebody to come home for the holidays. We are trying to make a change for the holidays. We're trying to do something for the holidays. And all the way through until this moment, people are resistant to the idea of, well, we can get together, we can do this differently, da 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 da. People will be very resistant until right here. And there will be some people that we are going to be getting the last minute call of saying, yeah, I've decided I'm going to fly home. It's 3 days to Christmas. Are you really going to catch a flight? That's going to lead to headaches, by the way. If we waited to the last minute to make that decision, it's going to lead to headaches. And it's potentially going to lead to some of those travel issues that I'm already warned about. For other people, though, this is the arrival. This is a hopeful arrival. This is a happy, hopeful, stabilizing arrival. But again, it's an arrival from a past situation, a past person. If we've had the boss that has not been clear about certain things, there will be something in this moment that offers clarity to them, that offers stability to them, that shows them, oh, maybe that wasn't the right way to do everything a couple days prior. And I think it's really interesting that this Mercury Cazimi happens when Mars is on the new moon in Sagittarius point, because the new moon in Sagittarius was at 20 degrees. This is a profound amount of clarity that will speak in so many levels. Enjoy this day. Enjoy this day. Okay. Oh, December 23rd, Mercury goes back into Sagittarius. Oh, the dynamic changes, the energy changes, the way we're thinking about things changes. Our minds are busier. There's a lot more activity. There's a lot of things going on. That's not a bad thing with the holidays. However, December 24th and 25th, with the moon in Mercury's sign, while Mercury is retrograde and while Mercury is re-entering its square to Neptune, there's going to be a lot of boisterous energy about beliefs for some people, about politics for some people, questioning those decisions that have come about, questioning like certain levels of responsibility. You're like, are you sure you're okay to make the turkey? Are you sure you're good to do these things? I'm grown. Thanks for that, Dad. Thanks for that. I'm okay. I know what to do. I know what I'm doing. Even if you don't know what you're doing, that's probably going to be your answer, just because of the way this energy is unfolding. And there can be, a lot of fun whenever it comes to the 24th and the 25th. Venus will hit this trine to Neptune, and this has this like romanticized energy to it, but it's also still coincided with the fact that Mercury is re-entering its square to Neptune. So in some ways, we're like having like a really good moment, seeing the imaginations being captured, seeing so much memories being made, and we're having this happy moment, but we're also having a lot of conversations and a lot of things being said. And I don't mind the 25th so much. It is more the 26th, whenever the moon goes into this opposition to Mercury and this opposition to Mars. Going into the 26th, when Mercury is re-entering its square to Neptune, when we're getting closer to this new moon in Cancer that actually perfects on the 27th, well, late 26th, early 27th. So I'm going to bump this backwards by hour. Okay. It is the 26th. So, full moon in Cancer. The sun is entering a trine to Jupiter. The moon is in a sextile to Jupiter. Jupiter, of course, is spinning, and Jupiter is just a few days away from ending its retrograde. So there's something that we have going on that's going to be emotional, that's going to take a few days to fully understand. Mercury is in this square to Neptune, and this is happening in Jupiter signs. Our heads are kind of spitty. There's things that are not clear. There are things that don't make sense. There are things that are going on. We're not necessarily happy with something that's happening in this moment. For a lot of people, we're not happy about something. There's an emotional release, an emotional purge. There will be unexpected communication. For some people, it's unexpected things from the past. If we decided at the last minute to travel during the holidays, some people might be arriving late. And then we're dealing with things tied to that too, with Mercury's square to Neptune. This is a hot mess day. This one and the next day when we get to the 27th. When Mercury hits that conjunction to Mars. I don't like these days for travel. I don't like these days for people that have been doing like online purchases. I don't like these days in the sense that you have traveled, then if I hate to say this part, if your home has been left unattended. I actually had this happen last Thanksgiving when my mom was sick. Her place before she moved back in with me full time. She had moved back in with me full time. We hadn't got rid of her old place yet. Her place got broken into during a Mercury Neptune square. And that's not even a joke. So I don't like this if you've left your place unattended, because you might not know the disruption and that disruptive energy that's going on during this right here. Mercury Mars hitting their conjunction. This is the second of the Mercury Mars conjunctions. We've already had another one. And that happened back around October 29th. This is 2 months later. There can be elements of what happened on October 29th that comes back up right here. But there can also be elements based off the fact that Mercury is going to be ending its retrograde shortly after this, where some kind of disruption also that comes back from April and May start to come back up. That starts to come back around in the next few days. There's a lot. This is a very disruptive, argumentative, combative, confused, misguided energy. I do not like December 26th and 27th. I've been saying this for months. I'm going to keep saying it until we're through it. I don't like these days. Okay. Whatever happens in the Mars Mercury conjunction, though, it leads to some type of action, an immediate action that must follow. And that includes the fact that Mars will actually perfect its square with Neptune, and this is going to go on for 2 days. It's the most exact on the 28th. It's still going to be active as we get into the 29th. But what's interesting about the 29th with the Mars-Neptune square is that's when Venus is going to enter Sagittarius. And I'm telling you now, Venus's entry into Sagittarius changes everything. One, this gives a new level of empowerment to Jupiter right as Jupiter is ending its retrograde. Two, this is giving a whole different level of control to Venus because of the mutual reception. Venus is now in Jupiter's sign. Jupiter has been in Venus's sign since May. This is the first moment we've had any level of mutual reception between the two of them. This empowers Venus to work on Jupiter's behalf. This empowers Jupiter to get something solved. And for lack of a better way to describe it, Venus coming into Sagittarius right here, it's like she's showing up and seeing a whole mess. There's been a whole holiday fight. There's a food fight at the table, and you showed up right at the end of it. And oh hell no! You sit down, and you sit down. Who started it? No, you're not going to do 30,000 conversations at once. No. Looks at Jupiter. What happened? Go get cleaned up. Mercury. What happened? You're mad. Go take a walk. Come back in a minute. Saturn. Why Saturn? Hear me out. The reason I say that with Saturn is because in these very first few days of Venus being in Sagittarius, Jupiter will turn direct. Mercury will turn direct. And when Mercury turns direct is when Venus hits her square to Saturn. So, December 29th, Venus has entered Sagittarius. December 30th, Jupiter is now direct. Mercury is stationing. Now, one of the reasons I said during this time span, we can go back to something that goes from April-May timeline. When Jupiter entered Taurus was May. When Mercury ended its retrograde at 5 degrees was May. The other thing that happened, that the other timeline that I mentioned that can come back around right here, based off of that Mercury-Mars conjunction, is late October. Something else from late October can come back full circle. Why do I say that? Because that eclipse that happened October 28th was at 5 degrees of Taurus. On October 29th, we had our first Mercury-Mars conjunction that happened in opposition to Jupiter. So elements from two timelines can be stringed together right here. 2 for sure. Potentially 3, if you want to include whenever Jupiter turned retrograde, and that was September. But there's nothing else in here that screams September to me. The 2 timelines that I'm seeing right here are May, April-May, and late October, eclipse season. Right here. Right here. Right in these few days. Mercury is spinning. Venus starts entering her square with Saturn. Venus is going to be imposing her will. And she's working on behalf of Jupiter. So this is also Jupiter's will onto Saturn. You're not going to behave this way. You're not going to talk to people this way. You're not going to do these things this way. And we get into this energy of setting something in motion, of putting something straight, of getting something healed. And in the late parts of the first, Mercury will turn direct. So I've got this at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. I bumped this 1 hour. Mercury is direct because it literally goes direct between 9 and 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. We end the Mercury retrograde late on January 1st. There will be a hot mess energy that comes through December 26th and 27th that we will not understand any level of solution or gets anything corrected until Venus goes into Sag, and that's going to be the 29th. That's when the fix happens. That's when the correction happens. That's when the new family member referee shows up. That's when the new employee gets hired. That's when something changes that allows for corrective action to follow, and it will be a boom, 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 boom of corrective action. January 1st. New year, new me. You can say that this year. You could not say that at the beginning of January 2023. You can say that January 2024. New year. Okay. Now, keep moving this forward. Mercury's going to be spinning for a few days. We're going to continue getting into Mars is going to go into Capricorn. This is going to happen early on the 4th. You can see Mars goes into Capricorn. And for those that have been listening to me for a while, I have said the full elements of understanding where we're going next and where we're going to have gains tied to Rahu, aka the North Node in Aries. We're not going to fully understand them until after Mars's rebirth, and we've had the Mars rebirth. But the thing is Mars has still been combust. If you listen to the December month ahead forecast, I said Mars is still snowblind. Mars is about to get out of the combustion. Mars is about to become the morning star. That's going to happen once these two get 15 degrees apart. Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn. He does very, very well here. So we're going to be able to have a clear Mercury, a direct Jupiter, a reborn Mars, all culminating in the first few days of January. A fully reborn, refocused Mars. And that's going to start right in this first week. These two are 14 degrees apart, and we want them 15 degrees apart. We're right there. We're in a good spot. Now, Mercury's going to start moving again. You can see Mercury just hit the 23 degree mark by the 7th, 8th. I'm not looking down. I actually don't even have it on the right page anymore. Mercury is going to enter its third and final square with Neptune. And this is going to coincide with whenever Mars is entering its trine with Jupiter. I like this energy. This feels motivating. This feels inspirational. This feels like we get a target. This feels like we can take some type of action. This feels like we're putting something into motion. And the thing is, we are doing exactly that. We're putting something very, very large into motion. But we're going back over the areas of the sky that we've already been through. So we're also taking corrective action with the motion that we're taking, with the steps forward that we're taking. Mars is now 15 degrees away from the sun. So Mars is now becoming our morning star. And we're moving forward. The new moon in Capricorn is going to happen early on January 11th. This new moon in Capricorn is also including the fact that Mars is in a sextile to Saturn. So there's a very strategic, well-planned, well-operating way of thinking, of being able to handle some things, of being able to put some things in motion. We are very much about to turn something around that's very, very exciting. Now, what I love about this new moon also is this new moon is in a trine to Uranus, and Uranus is about to turn direct. I don't normally put a lot of emphasis on the Uranus retrogrades, but whenever I was meditating on this, like there's something really profound about what's going to happen with this Uranus retrograde because it coincides with Pluto's re-entry into Aquarius. And Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. So we're moving into something. We're taking steps towards something. We're getting a momentum. We're getting a trajectory. And we're also getting very, very close to our last turnaround. We're showing somebody how to no longer be resistant to something. Okay. I'm going to keep this going. Mercury is going to re-enter Capricorn January 13th. This happens right as the moon is making a conjunction to Saturn. So again, we've got something very serious, very strategic, very hopeful, in motion. We have a lot of forward movement. We have a lot of forward momentum. I like a lot of this energy for that exact reason. Keep this going. Now, the sun is going to start its conjunction with Pluto on the 19th, and then they are both, while in their conjunction, going to move into Aquarius. So January 19th and 20th, this is whenever we start the Sun-Pluto conjunction. I know I have this at 10 p.m. We bump this one day, and boom. There's some type of arrival. There's some type of information. There's something that happens that once it's agreed upon, once it's met, once it's seen, Sun conjunct Pluto, it immediately gets debuted. It's immediately spoken to the masses. It's immediately coming to light. Look at this. We've got the moon's conjunction to Uranus right as the sun is coming into its conjunction with Pluto. The next day on January 20th, when the sun and Pluto go into Aquarius, please look at Mr. Mercury here. You see Mr. Mercury? Mercury right here? Yeah. Mercury leaves shadow the day that the sun and Pluto go into Aquarius together. That's when Mercury leaves shadow. The awareness of something changes. Now, in some ways, Mercury and this retrograde time span is necessary because we're going to come back to certain topics right at this mid part of January, so January 20th. And the awareness of past power struggles, past situations, past trauma is going to be very, very different. For some people, this is also an arrival of a new dynamic, an awareness of a new dynamic. Something is very, very much shifting after Mercury turns direct. And some elements of this are still not completely clear to me because we need to get through the Mercury retrograde. We need to see exactly where we're resistant, where we're seeing resistance, where certain elements are not completely clear, and how we overcome them. We need the elements of that Mercury, Neptune square, Mercury conjunct Mars, Mercury in its detriment, blah, 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 blah. December 26th and 27th. We need that energy to unfold the way that it's going to unfold for the power struggle to end, for solutions to come through. And the solutions, again, are going to come through Venus. We're not dealing with hot mess Venus anymore, okay? This is not Venus and Leo time span anymore. She is in a whole different headspace. And we're looking for solutions. We're looking for corrections. Once Venus goes into Sagittarius, it's a different ballgame. But there will be resistance and a bit of a hot mess throughout this Mercury retrograde. And again, we're going to see two different sets of topics. There's going to be the first half of the Mercury retrograde. Then we're going to have some kind of break in the Mercury cazimi. And then there's going to be the next half of the Mercury retrograde. And for some people, that's literally going to be, we have one set of issues, we find a solution, and the next day, a whole different set of issues. We got everything fixed at work. Yay, work, celebration. Yay, so happy. And then the next day, on to family shit. We're going to be so busy trying to get all this done, and then boom, yay, taking a break. I'm going to go on vacation. But then vacation is a shit show. Like, this energy and this dynamic that's coming through has so many layers to it that it's unreal. And I'm telling you, whatever happens December 26th and 27th, that is its own situation. In some ways, it's going to tie back to whatever was going on, Black Friday weekend, Cyber Monday weekend. And again, if you were one of those people that you did like online shopping during that time, we come back to it in some way. And I'm not wishing negative on anybody, but I'm realistic about the energies that I'm looking at. There's something there that we're going to come back to. Some of you are buying stuff on websites you've never bought on before, and you have no idea who you're giving your credit card info to. But you're going to find out. And regretfully, I feel like some people are going to find out the hard way. There will be elements that will be disruptive and confusing, and it's going to lead to having to make corrective actions blindly whenever Mars hits that square to Neptune. And for many people, there's going to be this element of feeling stuck for a few days, stuck not knowing how to get it corrected, stuck waiting for something to turn around, stuck waiting for a solution. The solution will come with Venus. Venus will have solutions. Venus is going to go from being our hot mess express to saving grace very quickly. There's a lot of energy in this Mercury retrograde. And again, there will be a lot of resistance to the things that are coming through, to the things that are being worked on, to the things that are being talked about, and the situations that are being had. But the resistance will not last forever. So don't take it personally. Let things unfold naturally. Baby steps. If you try to push something to happen sooner than it's ready to happen, of course you're going to get met with resistance. Of course we're going to have some headaches. Thinking that everybody has gone through the same level of healing and turnaround in their journey as you have, of course you're going to get met with headaches. You're going to go home and find that some of the rednecks are still the same old rednecks. It doesn't matter how much time you've spent away, they're still going to be the same old redneck. I'm talking from some personal experience on that one. And you can either take it with stride, not take anything offensive, making an active choice to not be offended by somebody else when they're just acting ridiculous. Now, when they start doing things that insult your intelligence and insult you, that's where we're going to have the next round of issues. Oh. There are elements to that last week of December that starts to really pull the timelines together. And for some people, it's going to be pulling back some of the info and situations that happened back in April and May. For other people, that second Mars-Mercury conjunction, that's going to be pulling things together from what occurred during that last eclipse, October 28th and 29th. For other people, it can be September, the end of the Venus retrograde, which was also the start of the Jupiter retrograde. It can be that timeline also. But I don't necessarily feel that as strongly as I feel the other two. But I'm not going to ignore it either. We are in a month of transitions. Mental transitions, emotional transitions, philosophical transitions, transitions to our beliefs. And understand that not everybody is going to be in the same dynamic that you are. And people will be confused. The thing about Mercury retrogrades is that mentally people aren't focused the same way. They're not functioning the same way. So there's going to be elements of resistance because people are not functioning like they normally would. Take each day with stride, live with the energy, and find ways to overcome reacting and make sure that you're able to respond more logically. We want to respond, not to react. We want to be able to hold our core and our strength and our inner resilience without compromising our integrity. And that's how you get through this Mercury retrograde. The easiest is doing the things that will not compromise your integrity. Okay. I hope this is helpful. I love and appreciate every single one of you. There will be themes of this video that I, again, will be stating again when I do the Sagittarius new moon video. There will be themes of this video that I will continue to recant all throughout the month of December, because this happens all throughout the month of December. We're in a timeline of transitions, slow moving, somewhat resistant, somewhat of a headache types of transitions, but they're all coming. I'll talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.